You've been lied to about what women want. The movies tell you it's flowers, devotion, endless declarations of loyalty. The songs tell you it's the man who pours his heart out, who bends, who compromises, who makes her the center of his world. But in the shadows, behind the polished scripts, there is another truth, one that society will never admit out loud. The man women truly crave is not the one who kneels, not the one who explains, not the one who can be swayed. It's the man who cannot be controlled, the man who refuses the leash, the man who stands calm and untouchable while the world tries to bend him. Why? Because everything about human desire is wired to seek the unbreakable. A mountain is only revered because no climber can conquer it easily. A treasure is only valuable because it cannot be stolen without resistance. Power is intoxicating only when it resists capture. And women, consciously or not, are drawn to the same law. They test, they pull, they demand. And when a man bends too easily, when his time, energy, and identity shift instantly at her command, the spell dies. He is no longer gold. He is copper, soft, malleable, forgettable. Picture it. She raises her voice, hurls accusations, demands answers. One man scrambles, explains himself, defends, argues. He spills words like coins from a purse, hoping the flood will buy peace. But what has he bought? Nothing. In her eyes, he is smaller, weaker, predictable. Then imagine another man. The same storm of questions hits him, but he doesn't move. He doesn't explain. He doesn't chase her frame. He simply stands, calm, silent, eyes steady. In that moment, she feels something else, fear and fascination, because she has found a force she cannot control. And that force pulls her deeper than any bouquet of roses ever could. This is the forbidden truth. Control is the hidden currency of attraction. The harder you are to control, the more value you carry. The more untouchable your frame, the more gravity you command. And the paradox is brutal. Every piece of advice you've been fed about being a good man has trained you to surrender control. To be endlessly available, to explain every action, to confess every doubt, to prove until nothing is left of you but a hollow shell waiting for permission. That hollow shell is tolerated, but it is never desired. Women don't say this out loud because saying it breaks the illusion. But watch closely, and you'll see it everywhere. The men they talk about with fire in their voice are not the ones who folded. They're the ones who said no, the ones who walked away, the ones who carried an aura of sovereignty, whether in a boardroom, on a street corner, or in a private fight behind closed doors. The men who refuse to be trained like pets are the men who linger in memory. And here is the haunting part. Once you understand this truth, you can never unsee it. You'll notice it in your own life. You'll remember the moments when you bent too quickly, and you'll feel the loss of gravity. You'll recall the rare moments when you held firm, when you refused to dance to someone else's tune, and you'll see the difference in her eyes. It's not about cruelty. It's not about dominance for the sake of ego. It's about sovereignty, the rare quality of a man who belongs to himself first. That is why women want the man no one can control. Not because he gives them comfort, not because he showers them with words, but because he embodies the most ancient law of desire. Power resists, and resistance is magnetic. To understand why women are magnetized by the man who cannot be controlled, you have to strip away the polite fictions and look at the machinery beneath. This isn't about romance. Not in the storybook sense. It's about psychology, biology, and the way human beings have been wired for survival across thousands of years. Attraction is not random. It's an algorithm written in the nervous system, designed to identify what protects, what provides, and what cannot be easily broken. From an evolutionary perspective, women face different survival pressures than men. Men competed with each other in direct physical contests, hunts, and wars. Women, on the other hand, relied on selecting partners who could endure pressure, resist chaos, and remain sovereign under threat. A man easily controlled by rivals, by emotions, by the group, was a liability. His genes would not survive long in an environment where danger lurked in every shadow. But the man who resisted control, he was the fortress. His sovereignty meant stability, protection, and higher chances of survival for both partner and offspring. Modern neuroscience backs this up. The brain's reward circuits light up not for predictability, but for resistance. Dopamine spikes when effort is required, when a goal is not easily achieved. In social dynamics, the same wiring applies. What cannot be easily bent becomes valuable. Women instinctively sense this. A man who cannot be pulled into every argument, who does not collapse under pressure, who holds his frame even when provoked, activates a primal recognition. Here is strength. Not the superficial strength of flexed muscles or loud words, but the deeper strength of self-mastery. Social psychology adds another layer. Power in human groups has always flowed toward those who could not be controlled. Leaders who appeared independent, unpredictable, and sovereign were respected or feared more than those who constantly sought approval. This is why charisma is often linked to mystery. The less control others feel they have over you, the more they project significance onto you. Mystery is not about hiding facts. It is about refusing to be completely mapped, refusing to be predictable. Now combine this with cultural conditioning. Men are told from childhood to be compliant, to sit still, to explain themselves, to ask permission, to seek validation. They are taught that good behavior means bending, and that bending will be rewarded. But the forbidden truth is that bending breeds contempt, not desire. Every time a man over-explains, over-apologizes, or overshares, he signals that he can be controlled. And once that signal is received, attraction begins to die. Meanwhile, women are not consciously plotting this. They don't sit down with a checklist and say, "I want a man who resists control." No, it is unconscious. It's a script written into the nervous system. That's why even women who claim to want a nice, communicative, understanding man often feel bored or restless when they get him. Because what they asked for consciously does not match what their biology is wired to crave. Their attention drifts back to the man who cannot be swayed, who does not beg, who walks away when manipulation fails. The paradox is sharp. Women are socialized to demand control, but they are biologically drawn to men who resist it. This is why relationships often become battlegrounds of push and pull. A woman may unconsciously test a man's frame, probing for cracks, while simultaneously resenting the man who crumbles. The tests are not malicious. They are evolutionary scans for sovereignty. She wants to know if you can withstand pressure, if you are your own center of gravity. If you pass, desire grows. If you fail, she feels contempt, even if she can't articulate why. This is the psychological context most men never see. They think love is built on constant giving, constant explaining, constant availability. But beneath the surface, the system runs on sovereignty. The man who cannot be controlled is not just desirable, he is inevitable. He embodies the forbidden logic of attraction. The fortress always stands taller than the house of sand. Now that the machinery is exposed, let's break it down into the 5 hidden mechanisms that make women irresistibly drawn to the man who cannot be controlled. These are not surface tricks. They are primal levers, operating below conscious awareness, shaping attraction in ways that polite conversation will never admit. 1. The gravity effect psychology calls this the locus of control. When a man holds his own frame, he becomes the gravitational center of the interaction. Others orbit him, not the other way around. Women sense this immediately. The man who doesn't chase, doesn't bend, doesn't explain, He pulls the environment into his field. Example, at a party, every man leans in, trying to entertain her, but one man leans back, steady, unimpressed. She feels the pull not because he gave her energy, but because he refused to. Gravity doesn't chase planets. Planets revolve around gravity. 2. The mystery multiplier. Humans overvalue what they cannot fully map. Neuroscience calls this the information gap. The brain hates uncertainty, so it obsesses over filling it. A man who is fully explained, predictable, and transparent loses intrigue, but the man who cannot be fully decoded becomes magnetic. Example, she texts 3 questions, he answers 1, briefly. Her brain does the rest, spinning stories about his life, his motives, his inner world. Silence becomes canvas, and her mind paints obsession on it. Control dies where mystery lives. 3. The resistance trigger. Attraction amplifies when challenged. In behavioral psychology, this is the principle of reactance. Humans desire most what they feel is withheld. The man who resists pressure, who does not bend at every emotional push, activates this trigger. Example, she tries to guilt him. If you cared, you'd cancel your plans. Most men cave thinking compliance equals love, but the sovereign man holds firm. I'll see you when I'm done. She may protest, but beneath the noise desire spikes, because resistance signals strength. 4. The scarcity signal value is always tied to scarcity. What flows too freely loses meaning. The man who cannot be controlled automatically becomes scarce because he cannot be summoned on command. His attention, his time, his words, all rationed by his own will. Example, she calls in the middle of his workday. Instead of dropping everything, he continues working, calling back hours later. That delay doesn't kill attraction, it multiplies it. She realizes his focus is not easily purchased, and that scarcity elevates its value. 5. The frame fortress. Every interaction is a battle for the frame, whose interpretation of reality dominates. Most men collapse under pressure, adopting her frame, apologizing for things they didn't do, defending against accusations that were never true. But the man who cannot be controlled defends his frame like a fortress. Example, she accuses, "You never care about me." Most men rush to prove otherwise, entering her frame. But the sovereign man holds silence or calmly replies, "That's not accurate." He refuses redefinition. The fortress stands. Put together, these 5 mechanisms explain the forbidden truth. Women don't want control. They want the man who resists it. They want the man whose sovereignty forces them into orbit, whose mystery keeps their minds restless, whose resistance proves his strength, whose scarcity elevates his value, and whose frame cannot be breached. The man no one can control becomes the man everyone remembers, because he embodies the one quality that cannot be faked: sovereignty. Understanding the 5 mechanisms is not enough. Knowledge without application collapses under pressure. What you need is a survival manual, a set of rules that transform theory into practice so you stop bleeding power and start living from sovereignty. Each rule maps directly against the 5 mechanisms we exposed. Survival Rule 1. Become the gravity, not the orbit. Practical tactic. Stop chasing. Every time you lean forward with needy energy, texting too often, over-explaining, begging for validation, you orbit her gravity. Reverse it by training yourself to lean back, delay responses, speak less, move with deliberate calm. In groups, do not compete for her attention, command space with your own presence. Gravity does not announce itself, it simply pulls. Practice becoming the center that others rotate around. Survival Rule 2. Weaponize mystery through discipline. Practical tactic. Resist the urge to narrate every detail of your thoughts and plans. Oversharing is self-sabotage. Instead, curate what you reveal. Share selectively, leave gaps. When asked probing questions, answer briefly and redirect. I'll let you figure that out. Mystery is not deception, it's sovereignty over disclosure. The more you withhold strategically, the more her brain fills the void with stories. Let silence be the canvas. Survival Rule 3. Train resistance as a reflex. Practical tactic. Expect pressure tests. They will come in the form of guilt, ultimatums, or emotional traps. Instead of bending, rehearse resistance in small ways. When asked to abandon your priorities, say calmly, "That doesn't work for me." Hold eye contact, keep your voice steady, and do not over-explain. Each repetition strengthens your reflex. Reactance, the human desire for what is withheld, will flip in your favor. By resisting control, you trigger attraction instead of resentment. Survival Rule 4. Manufacture scarcity by choice. Practical tactic. Stop flooding the market with your presence. Scarcity is not about manipulation, it's about value. Structure your life so your time is full of purpose. Work, fitness, projects, friendships. This naturally limits your availability. When you do show up, your presence carries weight because it was not guaranteed. Text less, meet less, speak less. But when you do, bring intensity. Scarcity is not distance, it's quality, rationed by discipline. Survival Rule 5. Guard the frame like a fortress. Practical tactic. In every argument, remember, the first man to explain loses. Defensiveness is entry into her frame. When accused or provoked, do not rush to clarify. Instead, respond with silence or simple lines like, "That's your perspective." Do not allow her narrative to redefine you. Train yourself to hold pauses even when uncomfortable. The fortress is not loud, it is immovable. Your frame survives because you refuse to surrender it. Stacked together, these 5 rules form armor. Gravity anchors you, mystery cloaks you, resistance steels you, scarcity elevates you, and the fortress protects you. Women cannot help but test. They cannot help but push. But the man who lives by these survival rules does not crumble. He doesn't just survive the system, he bends it to his will. Think of control like chains. Most men wrap those chains around themselves with every apology that was never required, every explanation that was never asked for, every frantic attempt to prove their worth. They believe compliance buys love, when in truth it purchases only contempt. The harder they try to prove, the faster desire erodes. They become predictable, bendable, a resource to be consumed rather than a force to be respected. But the man who cannot be controlled, he is different. His silence feels heavier than their noise. His refusal to bend feels like steel against paper. His presence commands, not because he demands it, but because sovereignty radiates outward, forcing others to recognize what cannot be broken. This is the paradox women never admit. They claim to want comfort, but their biology craves resistance. They test not to destroy you, but to see if you can hold. And most men fail. The sovereign man is not cruel. He is not distant. He is not a tyrant. He is disciplined. He knows that words lose value when spilled carelessly, that attention loses meaning when given endlessly, that strength dissolves when explained rather than lived. He stands not to dominate others, but to remain unmovable within himself, and in that unmovable stance he becomes magnetic. You must understand this. Women are not drawn to control. They are drawn to what cannot be controlled. Just as storms rage against the mountain yet never move it, tests rage against the sovereign man yet fail to bend him. The mountain does not chase the storm. It simply stands, and because it stands, it is revered. If you want to survive this system, you must stop selling yourself for scraps of approval. You must stop handing over the keys to your frame in exchange for temporary peace. You must stop mistaking control for connection. The only path forward is sovereignty. Build gravity. Protect mystery. Train resistance, manufacture scarcity, guard the fortress, because in the end, the man who cannot be controlled is the only man who commands respect, desire, and freedom at the same time. And here is the forbidden truth. Once you taste sovereignty, you will never return to compliance. Once you realize that silence bends others more than words ever could, once you see that resistance attracts more than indulgence, once you feel the weight of being unshakable, you will understand why women want the man no one can control. Because that man is rare, that man is timeless, that man is you. If you choose to step into the discipline, this is not about hating women, it is about decoding the system that operates beneath polite lies. It is about learning the rules so you stop being a pawn and start becoming the player. And if this breakdown opened your eyes, don't let the vision die here. Share this with a man who is still drowning in chains, still mistaking obedience for strength. Subscribe to this channel, because what we expose here is not taught anywhere else. It is forbidden truth, stripped bare. Turn on notifications, because the system never sleeps, and neither should your awareness. Say less, stand firm. Be the fortress, and remember, in a world built on control, sovereignty is the only weapon that cannot be stolen.